Certainly, the audio quality is good. So if anybody could just hit us up through the chat. I try to preface this statement all the time, but this is a live show, so anything could happen. So bear with us if we run into any technical difficulties. If anybody can go ahead and let us know right now if this is coming through nice and clear. We'll give about a minute more. All righty. See if we got any type of. All right. Somebody says hello. Okay. Can. All righty. Can you hear us? Waiting for a chat confirmation. All right. They can see us, so they can hear us. So without any further ado, we're going to begin the live session. There are stories that leave you speechless, and then there are stories that leave you angry. And this is one of them. A first grade child, a classroom, a trusted teacher, and a devastating truth that took far too long to surface. William Zarrison was a longtime educator in Clayton County, Georgia. Now retired, he stands indicted on 7 criminal charges, including aggravated sodomy, child molestation, sexual battery, and enticing a child for indecent purposes. According to investigators, the abuse just didn't happen in secret shadows or dark alleys. It happened inside a courtroom while other children were just feet away. Let that sit in for just a second. They were just feet away. This wasn't just a one time incident. This was a pattern, a 20-year pattern of red flags and ignored complaints. He kept his job, kept his pension, kept his title, and kept his access to children until a mother stood up, until a child, overcome by trauma, left behind a suicide note saying the pain made her want to end her own life. This isn't just a story about one predator. This is a story about systems that fail, particularly in Clayton County, about schools that turned their backs, about institutions more concerned with optics than innocence. And the question now is, could this have been thwarted? The real question is, why was it allowed to keep happening? Today, we speak with the mother of the child whose courage led to this long overdue indictment. We ask how the school district responded or didn't. We explore the past complaints, silenced, buried, dismissed, and we ask who else failed to act. In this case, it may have cost the child her sense of safety, her joy, and even her will to live. We're going to straight into the heartbreak and straight into the failure that allowed it. Please note, due to the sensitive nature of this case, and in an effort to protect her child, the mother's identity has been concealed. They are in a place to protect the identity of the victim's mother in accordance with trauma informed reporting standards. And so we are. On December 21st, 2023, an investigative reporter, Matt Drange, amongst others, wrote an article on Business Insider called An Epidemic of Sexual Abuse in Schools. In that article, it detailed the shoddy investigation, quiet resignations, and a culture of secrecy that have protected predators, not students. Brother, heavy subject. We're back at this again in Clayton County.
And not only we back at it, it's not just the school system that failed, but our good old DA, who we've done the series on about the Rainbow House. and how, remember what you said with the reporter talk about these quiet resignations
Hmm.
and how they're swept under the rug. And the latest on the Rainbow House is her friend Mia Kimber, the district attorney's friend, actually was supposed to go and plead to misdemeanor a few weeks ago and didn't show up, and there's a bench warrant out for her arrest, which is yet to be served. But interestingly, there's another court date for her on the 11th. So we're going to be watching to see if she quietly pleads to a misdemeanor when her son is serving 30 years, when the district attorney not only covered up, was involved in it. But it's going to be interesting as we go over this case that not just the school system failed, but listen to how this handled through the district attorney's office, which is also a sham as well.
Yeah. I want you to take a look at this next clip, and it kind of brings upon what we're here to talk about.
Primary school in Clayton County for first grade in 2017 over and over. But the years later, she learned what her daughter's teacher, William Zarrison, had allegedly done to her child.
I feel angry. I feel hurt. I feel betrayed.
A document indicates last month a judge found probable cause to issue arrest warrants, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, and enticing a child for indecent purposes.
It'll come through that, I'm innocent of these, despicable allegations. They're just ridiculous. They're unfounded.
And the mom says it was only this year, after the discovery of a suicide note in her by then 13-year-old daughter's lunchbox.
She said she felt dirty for what he had been doing to her.
That she learned the Clayton County school system had received a series of complaints about Zarrison starting in 2001.
The school failed her.
So we got another situation.
Yeah. And I think now's the
2001.
time. Yeah, 2001. And brother, as we discussed on other podcasts, there's a lot of situations, active shooters, all type of situations that could have been prevented if someone took action when they saw the first sign. And usually there's a lot of handwriting on the wall. This right here is not handwriting on the wall. This is almost an explosion on the wall. And had it been handled then, it wouldn't have been handled now. But of course, we know we're in a situation where prosecutors like this dummy we're getting ready to discuss today are busy prosecuting people for preventing things, but then they're over here covering up stuff like this. And so I think without further ado, to understand how the ball was dropped by the school system, how the ball was dropped by the DA's office, let's go ahead and introduce the mother of the victim. We can't, of course, say her name, but ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. And we appreciate you being on the show and coming forward to speak out about this matter. I tell you what, to start out, tell us your experience in trying to get something done about this in all the areas where you found that the ball was dropped as you was trying to get justice for your daughter.
Okay. Well, March of 2023 is when I found out about the incident. My daughters told her cousins, and her cousins told their mothers, which their mothers told me. And I filed the police report. And on the police report, of course, they said that someone would contact me. The police said that he could not talk to my daughter because she was a minor, but someone from their special agent will get in contact with me. So nothing, I heard nothing of 2023. In 2024 of March, I found the suicide note in my daughter's lunchbox that, stated she wanted to kill herself because she felt dirty. She felt like a whore because of what this man done to her. And I then called the crisis hotline because I did not know what to do.
Before you go any further, two things I want to bring out. Number one, it's a little hard to hear you. We got one chat. If you could speak up a little bit where we could hear you better. And I want to reiterate one thing that you said for people who not said it. You filed a police report about what happened to your daughter in 2023, and nothing happened. And it wasn't until 2024 when you found these suicide notes from your daughter and made a ruckus about it, which you should, that finally you saw some movement. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So there was no movement in 2023, of March of 2023, on that year. And I spoke with the South Clayton Police Department that's in Hampton. They told me that I need to go back to the school and speak with the resource officer at the school. So I went to the school, which my daughter, she no longer went to that school because I withdrew her in third grade. Um,
All right. Before we go any further, we're still getting chats that you can't be heard, and it's real important that they hear you more than they hear us.
Sorry.
Let's see if we could do something where your volume could go up. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe speak up, or maybe turn up the volume or get closer. But we got another thing that they couldn't hear you. Oh, it's hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yes.
Okay.
I know that's a little better for me, and maybe we'll get a response of if our audience can hear you.
Okay. Well, I went to the South Clayton Police Department, which is in Hampton, and they told me I needed to speak with the school resource officer. I had to go back to the school, um, and from there, I went to the school. I spoke with the assistant principal there, and she said that I needed to go back to Clayton County Police, and it just felt like I was getting a runaround. So I went back to not to the same police department, but to Clayton County Police Department, the one that's in Jonesboro, Georgia. I went there and I just broke down. I just broke down crying because it felt like I was just getting a runaround, and this was my daughter. This is my daughter, my child, and it just felt like nobody really cared. Um, but they did show some empathy there. So I remember the police officer there. When I told her, she actually looked up his name, and she was like, "Oh my God, child molestation came up as soon as I put his name, in Google." So I got a copy of my March of 2023 police report and filed another police report uh, March of 2024. And I went down to the security, like to the resource office in Clayton County, the school resource officers. I went there. At the time, they had a meeting going, but the person at the front office, she took a message for me and she gave it to them, and they did call me, the investigator. So they set up a forensic interview for my daughter. My daughter went and had the forensic interview done in April of 2024. Um, and from the forensic interview, um, the next step was it was the preliminary hearing was in August. When they did the preliminary hearing, they charged him. It was three charges, three criminal charges, that they found probable cause to arrest him. So they did arrest him. From there, um, let's see, it was the indictment that was 2025. It's like March of 2025 was the indictment. He received four more new charges, felony charges. So a total of seven charges. And I know at the preliminary hearing, the judge told him that he can be arrested for new charges, not the same charges that they were arresting him for, the three charges that they were arresting him for that day, but he can be arrested if he get new charges when he's indicted, which He did get new charges, but he was never arrested. So he's still out on bond.
So let's go back through this because there's so many things that I'm picking up on. Let's go back to this police report.
Mhm.
You file it in 2023,
Yes.
but a whole year goes by and nothing happened. Now, I used to work for the Clayton County Police Department before I became sheriff, and I used to be an investigator. And way back then, the policy was once a police report is filed, it's immediately sent over to the detective division, and within 3 days, the investigators assigned to has to make contact with the victim, and in this case, it would be the victim's parents. After that, you filed that police report. Did anyone contact you
No,
at all?
no one
So,
contacted me.
so you never received a call from a detective saying, "Hey, I got this case. I'm working on it."
No, I did not.
Interesting. Okay, so now you file this report. You hear nothing from law enforcement. You hear nothing from the district attorney's office. And a year later, you find the suicide note. And so you go and you demand justice.
Yes.
And at that point, they pull up this guy's name and realize there's a history of him being a suspect for this. Okay. What is it then that you started to receive contact from law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. But once it got to the prosecutorial stage, tell me about your experience with the DA's office.
Well, I spoke with, they had a victim advocates person that I just felt like she didn't really kind of keep me updated with everything. I kept calling to find, okay, what's next, what I need to do, what's going on. Did he get arrested? Did he, things I know they cannot tell me everything. Protect the case. I understand that. I do understand that, but it's some things that I can be told that should, like letters, like that when once the prosecutor has changed to a new prosecutor, a letter should have been sent out or something, or I should have been called.
So tell us, stop 1 second. Tell us about that. Did the prosecutor change? Tell us about that.
Well, yes, the prosecutor, um, she has a new prosecutor, which I never met. I have never met her. I never talked to her.
Do
And
you know who the old prosecutor was?
yes, the old prosecutor, her name was Bonnie.
Was it Bonnie Smith?
Yes.
Okay, let me stop you a second. So you wouldn't know this. Jerome, the public wouldn't know this. But now that's a person I know of. She was with the DA's office many, many years ago and then came back. And she did recently leave. And my understanding is she left because of the leadership. And that basically she'd rather go in the private sector than deal with the person who leads that office now. So just to put it out there, I can tell you this: that particular person didn't leave because they didn't want to handle your case. They left because of the dysfunctionality of that office and the DA. But keep going.
Yes. So, well, I have never met the new prosecutor. That was, I found that out. It was like May of this year. But I have never talked to her or anything. And just like I explained to the victim advocates person, that my child has experienced trauma. Okay, when you're dealing with kids that have experienced trauma, you cannot just like change up like that. You have to be consistent. So like that person, I feel like that person should contact me so me and my daughter can meet them and so my daughter can feel comfortable with that person. So um
I agree. I got one more question I want to ask you. Then I'm gonna let my brother, because I know he has questions. because there's a lot here, and I know we're at the DA, but I know my brothers want to circle back about the colossal failure at the school system. But let me ask one more question. So he finally gets indicted. They finally get him indicted, and they not only indict him on the charges of the warrant, but there's additional charges he's indicted on. And you said something key there. Say about that, and what happens there?
Well, he's out on bond. He never got arrested. So, well, again, he was arrested in August, and then he got on bond, but he was never arrested for the new charges.
So let me explain how that works. Uh, People get arrested on a warrant, and of course, we got this grand jury system. But when they are indicted at the grand jury and there's additional charges, the sheriff's office has to go out and arrest them again on those additional charges. And that's, I can't tell you how many times someone has been arrested out on bond, and then when they get indicted, charges are added in the indictment, and we have to go and rearrest them again because there's new charges, and then they have to bond out on those additional charges. So it's mighty strange to me as it is to you, but even more strange to me as a former sheriff, how there's additional charges on this guy, and he's not taken into custody again and have to rebond out on it. And then that's when we get into what we'll explore a little later. Why would that be? I mean, is it because of who he is, if he's anybody at all, or who he's friends with, like the situation we got with Mia Kimber, who's been out on bond for almost 3 years for child molestation charges, and now suddenly get to go and plead to a misdemeanor or given the opportunity to do that. That's what we need to explore, and that's what we need to keep an eye on. But Jerome, let me turn it over to you, brother, because I know you got a lot of questions to ask.
Well, it's the same old thing over and over and over again, right? So one of the things that we take a look at is how the process should work. And Clayton County is just abysmal when it comes to this. So I want everybody to take a look at, okay, of course, you get the first initial report. Just to give you a heads up, under OCGA 19-7-5, these are the following people that must report. And we failed in that. So we know that teachers must report, school administrators must report, counselors, nurses, social workers, law enforcement, and there's a host of other people. They must report any suspicion of abuse or neglect immediately. And then how this system is set up is where that report then goes directly to DFCS, right? And then this report has to be made within 24 hours. And thus, this is all a convoluted situation that they have here in Clayton County. You know, what the biggest problem in Clayton County, and then maybe someone who becomes congressman will be able to go ahead and say is, guess what? This law says report any suspicion of abuse or neglect. And what I take it from is that these administrators, they don't know what suspicion is. They have in their mindset that they need proof of something, and then that they can go ahead and do something. You don't need that. You don't need that at all. You just need to know that the allegation is there and you have some suspicion that it could or most likely did happen. Just go ahead and report. Protect yourself and report it. That's where the perversion comes in this whole situation. You got so many entities right now trying to push away from this whole situation because they look at the law and say, hey, guess what? I have to have suspicion, but I had nothing to go on. You don't need much to go on. You just need, hey, guess what? That's what they said. Okay. Hey, were you? Yeah, go ahead and tell. But what we've done so far is, sadly, is we have a culture that believes that you have to have proof or definitive proof. And for anyone out there, you do not. And this is part of the problem here in Clayton County.
You're right. You're right. And I'm looking at this protocol you got up here, and even though I think it can be improved, I don't see where that was followed in this particular case. Ma'am, do you feel like this protocol that you're looking at was followed with your daughter?
No.
I could use something one better than that. Now, what I'm about to show you here is two school boards, Clayton County and Mount Vernon School District. Mike, let's take a look at Mount Vernon. They acted the same day. This is what it looks like when you're doing the right things. They got police involvement there immediately. They removed that person instantly. Then they went about, they were transparent with parents. They sent out a letter to them, letting them know. They investigated thoroughly, and the counselors were provided. Look what Clayton County did. Over 20 years. That's disgusting. That makes no sense.
It is.
I mean, I'm sure that there's some administrators there that no longer work there, but they need to be brought up on charges too. What are you talking about? This is disgusting. I mean, you had people knowing over a period of time what was going on. And it wasn't just a one-off here. There is no known alerts of any communication to the parents because there could be more victims out there. And that's why we're doing this show.
You're absolutely right. And you're right. We need stronger laws. But let me tell you a secret about the laws. I'm a former legislator, and actually I authored and passed 4 bills in the law, and the one bill that I'm most proud of deals with child molestation cases. And the reason and what it did was it changed the fact that first offenders for child molester would be able to use that so they could get a job at an elementary school or daycare center, and no one knew it, and then they would reoffend. So that's why we worked on getting that law passed, because a lot of that was going on. People's kids were getting molested by people that had already been arrested for child molestation, but yet the school hired them or the daycare hired them because they had no way of knowing. So we fixed that back in 2004. Okay, but remember this, laws are only as good as the people who enforce them. You can have great policy, you can have great laws, and if they're not being enforced or they're half-assed being enforced, then you get situations like this. Because you see the policy that the Clayton County school system has. The policy in itself is not a bad policy. I can see things where it could be strengthened and where it could shorten the time even more than it already is. But that wasn't even adhered to. Mm-hmm. So even if I got up here and say we need a law, and I'm going to make sure the laws are stronger, and of course I'll do that. But if you don't have the leadership that gets on it, then you get this type of craziness. You get bureaucracy. If you have a DA that doesn't have a sense of urgency, or that the law is only enforced unless it's a friend of hers or a friend of a friend, which I hope that's not the situation here. And that's why we're going to be watching, and we're going to ask every watchdog in Clayton County to watch this particular case. But, you got this unequal application of the law, where as long as it's someone we don't know or someone we don't like, we'll enforce the law. But if it's someone we know and, he's a good guy, he's been working here for a long time, then you see these types of things go on. So obviously this guy is probably someone that was well liked in the school system, and he's just out of whatever. But there's this pattern there, and there was no leader strong enough to say, hey, wait a second, this dude needs to go. And if we can't make him gone, we need to isolate him someplace where he can't be around kids, because it's very, very suspicious. And we don't need to take the chance or the liability of this guy being around kids with this type of track record that we have that dates off nearly 2 decades. Had that type of action happen, the mother, the victim, wouldn't have reached out to us and wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what this is giving off? This is almost a replica of what happened at Pennsylvania State University. If you remember, back then, the football team was believed by an individual by the name of Jerry Sandusky. Jerry Sandusky was sexually abusing boys. And a little bit about this law that you're talking about. What happened there was that Joe Paterno got a whiff of what he was doing. He didn't know it to be true or not. So, guess who he told? The athletic director. The athletic director was charged for those crimes. Jerry Sandusky is in jail and maybe dead now. He's been in jail ever since those allegations. But that's the other part of this that is wicked too, because somebody just feels like as long as they just tell somebody else who they feel is in charge, they can go like this and don't have to worry about it because they did their responsibility and told someone. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. You have to take the initiative. If you heard it, you talked about it, then you need to keep on being a part of it, especially if you are someone that has trusted responsibility.
So let's think about this. You're absolutely right. So we know that you talk very eloquently about it, about mandated reporters and how there are people that they have to report. Okay, but remember what I said, the laws are in place, the policies in place, but who's watching? And when you got the fox watching the chicken pen, that's where the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, remember, we got a district attorney who sat on the board of the Rainbow House and had knowledge that her friend and her friend's son was involved in child molestation and did nothing for absolutely a year about it until someone finally pushed the issue, like the lady we have here today. And then finally something got done. And even when it got done, it was botched. They ended up locking up the wrong people, people who actually reported, but got blamed for not reporting. And then we find out that, well, the DA knew and didn't report. And even the chairman of the county knew and didn't report. It was put on his desk and he threw it in the trash can and he said, oh, that's just a disgruntled employee. Why did he say it was just a disgruntled employee? It's because of relationships. The DA is friends and appointed Mia Kimber to be the director. He's friends with the DA, and see, here's when you find weakness in leaders. It goes even more than cover up. But one of the leadership principles out there, Sun Tzu said it in the Art of War. He said that a general has to be able to punish those closest to him. He has to be equal with rewards and punishments. It's easy to punish people you don't like or people that you don't know. But when you find out that your friend, your relative, or whatever is involved in criminal activity, and you're the DA, you're the sheriff, or you're whatever, you're the head of the company, you have to act. And when you find weak leaders who child molestation is bad unless, oh, it's my friend. Oh, well, this is a guy and he knows someone that helped me get elected. So I don't want to go and arrest him on this indictment. Let's just try and see if this thing goes away. And what you see with a lot of DAs is what they'll do is they'll have a case and it's a solid case, but they don't want to prosecute the person. So the case just kind of sits there and then 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by. And then hopefully they can just dismiss it because if time and space is gone and people forgot. Kind of like what you said or what was said about this other situation. Like what's going on with Mia Kimber at the Rainbow House. Let some time go by and then maybe we can just get her a plea to misdemeanor while she's out on bond, even though she's been charged with charges that could get her 30 years like her son. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're not going to let happen to the mother of this victim. We're going to have every watchdog in Clayton County watch this case, be there. I hope all of the watchdogs come out June 11th to see what happens with Mia Kimber. But unless someone's watching and someone's holding this DA accountable, this is the type of things that can happen or will happen. And she already has a pattern of this. And you could tell by this case it's starting to have that same pattern. I don't know who this guy is or who he's connected with, It is very, very odd for a man to have those type of complaints and maintain his job this long. And it's very odd for him to get indicted on additional charges, but he doesn't get rearrested and he's still out on bond. That's very odd. And that's why I'm so glad that this mother is fighting and shedding a light on this so that everyone can see what happens. So if there's any impropriety, we can catch it ahead of time before it gets too far, like the Rainbow House did.
Right. So we have a timeline here that is pretty telling. And, back in 2001, we got the very first allegation that popped up. And these young girls reported that obviously Zarison had touched them, underneath their skirts. And so it was nothing happened. In 2003, we have the second known allegation that pops up, and this time, he's putting his hands on their thighs, he's giving them hugs, he's touching them on their buttocks. In 2017, the mother of the victim, her daughter, gets assaulted at that time, but it hasn't come out yet. In 2022, we got the third known allegation that pops up. And so that, that new complaint does start generating some noise. And, HR steps in 2022. And they sent him an official letter reprimanding him in 2022. How do we find out? Well, we found out from Business Insider. So, they were able to go ahead, and that investigative journalist was able to go ahead and find out through records request and found out that, yeah, he was disciplined, at least in part by a reprimand, which is not enough. All this was in-house. They dealt with this all in-house. So we go back to 2023. As you know, that's when the mother of the victim starts getting wind of this. Okay, the daughter discloses the allegation to her cousins and so on and so forth. Mom reports it as soon as she finds out. And then Clayton County authorities go ahead and, they start seeing this. But in 2023, too, he retires, because that happens a lot when you start knowing the heat is coming to you. He retired at that point. Then in 2024, Zarison is arrested. And then on 2025, of course, you got the 4 additional indictments it's 4 additional charges on the indictment by the grand jury. In 2024, of course, the judge found enough probable cause to get him on the first 3. And now we're waiting for July 11th for the pretrial motions and so on and so forth. So how did this all come about? In part, with the details of this, was in part by an investigative journalist from Business Insider. And he did a really good job. I'm put him up here, Matt Durange. Did a phenomenal job of bringing this to light. And he did an expose, not of Clayton County. It was the entire United States and what school districts all around are doing. And one of them, he highlighted this case. And it was just mind-boggling how school districts around the country are shelving these things because, of course, they're worried about their image. They're worried about talking about friends. Now, that's what you were talking about. Hey, some of these teachers are long tenured. They don't want to go ahead and destroy their lives. So, of course, they'll have them quietly resign and so on and so forth. So it's been problematic for a long, long time. But I agree with you, brother, when you have weak leadership that doesn't want to go ahead and take a stand for kids, they got to go. They got to pack up and go.
And especially when you got leadership that we've had the shows before, that we've had people on there saying not just didn't take a stand for the kids at the Rainbow House, but was involved in the cover up and might be involved herself to some degree. But let me say this: the pretrial for this case is July 10th, and it's important that the whole Clayton County, everyone, activists, voters, everybody needs to keep a watch on this to make sure that this is a case that's not swept under the rug like the Rainbow House was, and that everything that needs to be done and done in a timely manner is done so that the mother of the victim and the victim can see the justice that they deserve. Now, I know you and I, we kind of got long winded. We still got the mother of the victim here. Tell us about, you've listened to us, but we should probably be more so listening to you. Tell us what you want us to know and what you want the public to know, and what you want to see happen.
Well, I want justice for my daughter, and I want a fair trial for my daughter. And I'm not familiar with who job it is to do what in the criminal justice system. I'm not familiar with it, but I just want everyone to do their job and to do it like effectively. So I do not want this man to just get away with what he's done, not only to my daughter, but what he's done to other kids. So I just want justice to be served. So that's
What,
Well, we're going to
ma'am,
be watching and doing. No, Jerome, go ahead. I
ma'am,
apologize.
ma'am, what does justice look like to you in this situation? What would you like to see happen to him?
well, I would like to see him be held accountable for his action. Everyone that failed my daughter needs to be held accountable. That's what I want to see done. People, teachers, you need to speak up. If you know something, speak up, because you are mandate reporters,
Mhm.
and you supposed to speak up for these kids. But I think a lot of teachers might try to be quiet because of their jobs. And
Mhm.
no, speak up. This is somebody's child. If it was your child, you would want somebody to speak up.
You're you're absolutely right on that, and you're absolutely right on that. It almost gets to this thing, that's in our is in the culture society now. Talk about no snitching or whatever, and you're right about that. It's so amazing. People want to live by this code until it happens to them, until it happens to their family. And then there's another side to that too. There's some folks that's just afraid to get involved because they don't know if they can trust the officials. And I we can understand that, especially in a case like Clayton County. If you got a case where a DA knew about a molestation scandal, did nothing, covered it up, the chairman knew, did nothing, covered it up, then people feel, well, if I go to them, nothing's gonna happen. Or maybe I'm telling on someone who's their friend. But when that type of culture is allowed, this is the type of things that happen. And not only does this happen, but it can actually have a domino effect. You know, maybe a good example, and maybe I shouldn't bring this up because it's like it's a comic book. But I thought one of the most powerful things about the comic book Spider-Man, how he came to be, is a man robbed somebody and ran past him, and he had the ability to stop him, and he did. And he said, "I'm not going to get involved." Well, that same man that ran past him went and killed his uncle. And he thought to himself, had I stopped that man from doing what he did to someone else, my uncle would be alive today. Well, that's what people need to think about. You don't want to get involved, or well, you think you know someone that knows somebody. But what if the next child that person molests is your child, your niece, your nephew, your best friend's child? when you don't stop these people from doing what they're doing, they can go on to do more, like what we saw happen with the Rainbow House. And you're right. One thing that you said that's powerful is you just don't want him accountable, but you want everyone that dropped the ball to be held accountable. And you're absolutely right about that. Every administrator that didn't take strong action should be held accountable for what happened to your daughter. The Everybody that didn't take action in law enforcement for a year should be held accountable. The DA should be held accountable for not having this guy rearrested, and should be held accountable for all of the kids that got molested at the Rainbow House, which she could have stopped. So you're absolutely right. And that's what needs to happen. And the only way it can happen is, first, we have to have fighters like you that are willing to bring this to the forefront. You're a very brave woman. I was looking what you did there on Channel 2 News, you being here. You're brave, and as you should be, to defend your daughter. And I hope that this inspires others to do what you're doing. You know, ever since we started covering these child molestation scandals at the Rainbow House, we've met people we probably would have never met before. Two individuals came forward about the Rainbow House. You got in touch with us, and another parent has gotten in touch with us. It's not a child molestation case, but something just as serious. And she'll be here with us next week, same time. But I say that to say this: someone out there that's listening, and maybe you know something, or maybe your child is a victim, or maybe you are a victim and need to tell your parent to come forward, or maybe you know of a situation, you know a victim, and you can get in contact with that victim and say, "Hey, look, there are some people out there trying to do something. There is a platform that you can speak on and be heard, and we're going to put you on the platform, and we're going to let your story be heard in the entirety, to make sure that something happens and to make sure there's a light, and that this, like so many cases that are swept under the rug, and time and dust builds on it, and they're able to slip out the door with a misdemeanor plea, or sometimes no plea at all. If they can go, if it goes long enough, the DA will let something sit for 4 or 5 years, and when she thinks no one's looking, just dismiss the case. I think if we do a study, now I know of several cases like that she's done it with, several cases. A case of one of my deputies stealing guns, and if light wasn't shined on it by my book, he would have got dismissed. But basically all he got was a first offender, and it went away. But the things he was involved in, as far as 2 stolen guns and forging tickets for strippers and stuff like that, he should have served some time on that. So she already has a pattern of doing that, but she can't keep a pattern of doing that if we shine a light on it. Also, there's a new group out there, not a new group, but there's a committee that was formed that, by law by the governor, that can look into cases when DAs do things like what this DA is doing. And that's another option for you and for people out there who are victims of this DA trying to push cases under the rugs of people who are connected or people who are her friends. So there are remedies, and this platform is always available for anybody, especially people who've had children that have suffered child molestation because of either the cover up or just the sheer incompetence of the DA that we have here. And I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to my brother and to the mother of the victim. But, you know, Clayton County is in a very, very unique situation with this DA. You know, it is written that many are called, few are chosen. Well, this was a DA that was never chosen. She was appointed by the governor and never had any opposition. The people of Clayton County never chose this woman to be the DA. She was just someone that was appointed after the other DA went out, and for some reason, no one had yet to run against her. Unfortunately, we're stuck with her to the next election unless people come forward with enough for this committee to find a way to remove her. While she's there, we got to make sure that she's held accountable to do her job and do right for the victims of these molesters and victims of other crimes. That's all we can do right now, and that's what we're doing now. We have to do while she's there. We have to make sure that she's not allowed to push these cases under the rug and let dust on it and let them get away, or not rearrest them when they're indicted. When everybody else gets rearrested when they're indicted, but he doesn't. These are the type of things we got to shine on. You know, DAs like her are quick to get up and say, if it's somebody famous or powerful, we're going to treat them like anybody else. But they don't treat their friends or their connected people like anybody else.
Right.
And these people are doing heinous things.
Right. Right. Ma'am, do you have any other thoughts about the matter?
No, I don't.
Okay. I just
Is
want
there anything you want us to do more than what we're doing? We're going to be with you the whole way. July 10th is the pre-trial, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
July 10th.
All right. We'd like to know everything that happened at that time. The next statement I'm going to make is to the cowards out there. And I want to be very clear about this. Under Georgia law, you must, every school official, every law enforcement officer, you don't have a choice. You must report. You must do something about it. For the school officials that suspect abuse, even without proof, you must report it. It's against the law. Not only is it a misdemeanor and $1,000 fine, but you could be charged with more. That's if you have strong leadership at the DA office. And this especially goes out to the DA office. You need to be more competent. A lot of people are getting hurt in your county, and it's unnecessary. Do your job and do it well. If you need help, go to the state if you can't do it. But as of right now, there's too many people being hurt. That's all I have to say, brother.
I think you put it well. I think you put it well. Again, next week we're going to have another mother of a victim come forward about another case where the DA dropped the ball. And, you know, again, I'll say this. There's only two reasons you drop the ball. Either you're incompetent or you're dropping the ball on purpose because there's people you don't want to prosecute for whatever reason. Both is insidious. Both is pathetic. And both is why Clayton County needs another DA. But it's not election time. This is not an election issue. It's about forcing this DA to protect these victims now, exposing this DA, and hopefully more people come forward. And the thing that's in place now to look into DAs like the one we have here in Clayton County, they can complain to that particular committee, and hopefully the people can get a DA that Clayton County so deserves right now.
Right. Right. Well, that's it for Hill of Justice Live. But please, if you have any strong comments, likes, shares, we appreciate that. But this subject matter, although it's heavy, is a discussion worth having. And it's some of the information that we were able to glean from, please use it and educate somebody else about it. Because I don't believe that everybody knows the law entirety. You should, but not everybody knows about this. This is about our children. So without further ado, we'll see you on the next live next Sunday.